Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to our guest lecture series, Research, Reflection and Practices. This is our 24th guest lecture, and we are happy to have Prof Ružica Šimić Banović once again here. So thanks once again for this presentation. And today we will talk about migration. So the topic is migration and entrepreneurship. Should they come or should they go? The benefits for home and home societies worldwide, emphasis of these European cases. So just to give a little background on this, we were not here last time. She is an associate professor and head of the Department of Economics at the Faculty of Law, University of Zagreb. She is also teammate of the pre-lab Russian projects. That's where she is based with Senmon, and pre-lab is this precarious labor in Asia project. And go into that link and see what they are doing. Her current research and policy interests include institutional interactions and business environment with emphasis on the reform, implementation, and economic of labor, immigrant, entrepreneurship, gender equality, and migration trends in Eastern Europe. Prior to joining the academic community, Prof Banović was an advisor in the Croatian National Competitiveness Council and had worked in the private sector as well. Both her educational and professional background inspired her to focus her research on institutional changes in post-transitional economies of Eastern Europe. She has a number of publications, co-authored, and articles published in peer-reviewed journals. More than 50 scientific papers. These are some of the papers, more recent papers that she has done. And he also has done a number of projects. She has led projects including institutional support to migrant entrepreneurship and digital nomads in Croatia, socio-economic and legal aspects. Then a project on women in the lead, working group socio-economic positions of women in Croatia, implemented by the Academy for Political Development, funded by the US Embassy, promoting entrepreneurial life cycle principles among law practitioners and lessons learned from the university practice, implemented by CEPLAW, funded by the US Embassy. She's also a member of several expert and alumni associations and a foundation fellow of Searching EI, a fellow and member of this year's Film Center, and a research member of CEPLAW's SMSC Film Technology. Academia, she has a PhD from School of Economics and Business from the University of Lisbon, Slovenia, and an MA in Public Policy from King's College in London, a BSc and an MA, followed by a PhD in Fundamentals of Business Administrations, both from the Faculty of Economics and Business, University of Zagreb. She got a very recently an executive certificate in economic development from Harvard Kennedy School. She's a Shannon Scholar at King's College, where she did a master's, and a fellow at the Department of Economics at the George Washington University, and also was a part of the junior faculty development program there. So I warmly welcome Professor Ružica Šimić Banović to talk to us about migrations and entrepreneurship. Should they come or should they go? The benefits of home and host societies worldwide, emphasis on the recent cases. While I invite you to carry on this lecture, I also invite Dr. Ružica Šimić, who is the committee for the migration leader at CEPA, to coordinate the session.
Thank you so much once again for having me here. And to looking at your board, the insights before the lecture that hopefully the way to and then efficient preparation of this lecture. But also resulted in dozens of slides, which I have to narrow down. So I'll try to provide an overview and then leave more space for the discussion. Of course, feel free to interrupt me anytime. Okay. Not only because I'm from Croatia. Croatia is a very good example because considering this topic, because it now became increasingly attractive for the third international as an immigration country. It is still the US EU member state, and it's also the US Schengen zone and Eurozone member. Apart from that, Croatia was one of the first countries in the world that introduced the digital visa, and it, at the same time increased the barriers for the immigrant entrepreneurs, the ones that are outside the European Economic Area. I'll talk about it later. So right now we are experiencing both rising immigration and integration rates, not only in Croatia, but in most of Central and Eastern European countries. So here I wanted to talk about what is actually going on, provide some examples, not only from Croatia, but from Europe. Think about those key survival factors in the last years, and many of them are also were also present worldwide. And having in mind the Sri Lankan recent history, they're very important in terms of natural catastrophes, resilience, and how we do that. And in addition, what is that we can learn from migrant entrepreneurs? What are the lessons that can be learned from digital nomads? And finally, why is that at all important for Sri Lanka? Yeah, I can talk about that. Okay, it works. It's fine now. Sorry. Thirdly. So what makes this topic interesting for the rest of the world? Right now, as you can mostly see, we are experiencing not only in Croatia, but mostly Eastern Europe and Southeastern Europe, negative migration balance. We are also at the same time experiencing the rising immigration levels. So that negative migration balance, considering that it's mainly the working age population that migrate, it has many implications. Considering the demographics of the current societies, it gets to some very worrisome implications. In addition to that, despite that increasing immigration, we have very unfavorable entrepreneurial climate. So Southeastern Europe in general is considered to be the depopulation hotspot. One of the depopulation hotspots in the whole world, depending on the country. When we compare the number of people, number of citizens living in the countries of Southeastern Europe, it is expected that by 2050, they will decrease by 20 to 30%. So the more data are here. These, especially for the countries like Bosnia and Herzegovina, don't sound that pessimistic because they count the year 2020. And as you know, Bosnia and Herzegovina was part of the war. Much of the population that's left will never return. And what is also specific for Bosnia and Herzegovina, and now very, very specific for Croatia joining the EU, is that unlike previously, when many Croats were migrating mostly to Germany, and there would be only one family member, usually Papa Familia, that migrated to Germany, and then at some point returning for the retirement. Now, most of the emigration from Croatia are young families, meaning you can't really expect them to come back, meaning even less workforce. So the workforce shortage will be even stronger. When it comes to the other implications, countries like Romania are having very many issues with medical force and increasing shortage of medical force. So many issues are going on apart from the aging population. What you know today, and I actually on purpose left the year 2019, although the UN provided the latest data for 2020, is what we know is like all around the world, When we compare the left and the right table, the one that shows the international migrants is the population between 15 and 65, meaning the working age population. Right now, it is estimated that around the world, 300 million people are migrants. Apart from that, we have again an increase, of course, of the displaced people. Only for Ukraine, the latest estimates again saying that more than 10 million people left Ukraine. Some of them actually returned because in some of the regions, current estimate is that in Ukraine there are currently more than 30 to 45 million citizens. And before this current conflict, they had more than 50 million in Ukraine. Okay. Parallel to that, there is another huge increase, and this is probably should be a realistic estimate. With the latest data, there is a number of 35 million digital nomads. Compared, this is a number with for December 2023. And as you can see, there is a 37% of increase compared to previous year. When we compare it to 2019, that increase is much bigger. In 2019, there was an estimate of around 10 million digital nomads. This is their profile. When it comes to the demography, there's even this data that's showing some gender parity, but some other data show that it's 60% of men, around 40% of women. As they say, their biggest challenge is having a reliable Wi-Fi and a good place to work. And what is also important in terms of infrastructure where they work is this workstations. I mean, there was a multiple choice, so it wasn't the only choice for the workstations. An increasing number of not only co-working, but also co-living space. That is sort of a response to their demands. Because once they come to a country where they're selected to stay for a couple of months, they also wanted to instantly have that sort of informal private network. So many of them increasingly decide to live in so-called co-living spaces. And then best traveling places. And why I still consider it to be very important for Sri Lanka. Up to now, it was both North and South America. And then they mentioned Portugal, Germany, Brazil specifically. But according to the latest survey done among the digital nomads, the rising destinations are Thailand and then Sri Lanka on the second place. And you are aware of it, or no? No, yeah.
Already digital nomad visa.
Yeah, it's been in preparation.
So that was being like,
Yeah.
now it's citizens.
Yeah, I was checking it. Although with all those changes with visa of arrival and all the other rules, it's yeah. When I interviewed the expert community, some of them deciding on what their statues and business model be in Sri Lanka. Yeah, they mostly are targeting either the central Sri Lanka or the southern coast, and they choose it mainly for the opportunity-based reasons. I mean, business opportunity-based reasons, and I would put it mostly into lifestyle entrepreneurship. So in addition to that, also featured in the business media, there was a survey among 295,000 top executives that said that among the world's best countries to visit in the lifetime, the fifth place, Sri Lanka was ranked on the first place. And it got quite a lot of media attention, especially among the business community. So I thought we should start with that, why that topic is so that important. So when you talk about the digital nomads, they are considered to be the individuals that bring quite a lot of value added. And that requires some sort of improved destination management. So that is now outside the scope of this lecture. I'm just mentioning it as an additional topic that I will only slightly touch upon. Most of them are still expected in the IT, marketing, and many other sorts of remote businesses, involved into business. How often do digital nomads travel? That's also an important data to know. And how often do they stay in certain countries? So most of them stay in one country for 1 to 3 months. And then when they choose the other countries, unless there is some exogenous shock, like natural disaster or earthquake or lockdown, they would also choose the neighboring countries. And usually they try to make that travel logistics as easy as possible. What they also have as a product of this new and rising and demanding but loyal customers are all the digital nomad cruises. So this is the way for them to explore for a few days the countries, for instance, in the Mediterranean, that they consider to be shortlist for their future stay. And so there is such a rising market of the services and products from digital nomads. Still, when it comes to the geographical breakdown of digital nomads, the US citizens are the ones that have the biggest share. But the ones who are on the rise, for instance, in Croatia, they're the ones that got to the most digital nomad visa, and most applied for the digital nomad visa are Russian and Ukrainians. That is partly because of the situation in their country. It's also the fact that with the Russian citizens, half of them got rejected for different reasons. I was just today checking the latest data from the Ministry of Interior. Okay, and then when you talk about them, just to give the full profile, what are some, it sounds like a dream job, and 82% of them, according to the latest survey, said it is a dream job for them, the way they do it. Both the ones who are traveling alone, with friends, or colleagues, and with families. They adjusted to the lifestyle. 52% of them find that basic infrastructure to be the key thing. So they want to have a very reliable Wi-Fi source. Also, when I checked the expat community groups in Colombo, one of the best workplaces, if they not work from home, is the one next door. When I went there, they're like mostly foreigners on their laptops. So their identity interview, I threw the business for life. What the other issues they have is working in different time zones. I just now had actually a presentation with the digital nomad who published the book on digital nomadism, and he chose that his base would be in Portugal, in the Azores. His team is all around the world, and then they managed to find a time slot that for most of them is fine. And in that time slot, they organize all the meetings where all the team members should be available. And also they're trying to organize 4-day work weekend. So that they wait to hold their talk. The other issues that arise sometimes are feeling of homesickness or loneliness. But as you can see, even during the hard lockdown, they found ways to deal with that. And then, again, why do I believe some lessons from Eastern Europe could be very relevant? With all the new member states, and not only Croatia, but joined a lot from Eastern Europe, there is an unusually big emigration rate. As I said, many young families leaving their countries, but also a very large brain drain. So the Southeastern Europe, Eastern Europe, Central Europe, they are all facing similar issues. Apart from the Baltic countries, for some of them, there's an estimate that there might be some positive migration balance in terms of the return migration in Slovenia expected on the migration balance in terms of their own citizens. The rest of the countries are actually suffering a huge debt population. It is estimated that around 20 million people left those countries. And the table, sorry, you can hardly see, but I'll show you that this is actually the feeling, the intuition of the business community from the World Economic Forum survey. So when they ask the business community, would you expect for your country to have a big brain drain? And then among the top 10 countries in the world, among almost 200 surveyed, half of them are from Southeastern Europe. So according to the forecast, we interviewed business community managers. On top, you can find the Bosnia and Herzegovina on the third spot, Croatia fourth, Romania fifth, and so on. Macedonia, Serbia. Right on top are Haiti and Venezuela. So quite a big issue. So as I said, we had an increasing net migration. What was also interesting, these seem to be quite close for the third country nationals. There was general right-wing public discourse that we have in the workforce. And as you may imagine, Croatia is quite homogeneous in terms of population. We only have had by that time less than 3 inhabitants out of every 1,000 inhabitants that are not Croatian citizens. And out of those 3, most were from the neighboring countries. So you can hardly see, for instance, the dark-skinned person in the street. Quite big, super uncommon. So in 2014, in Croatia, there were only 231 work permit issues for the third country national. And then approaching, fast forward, approaching 2019, we got to the point where so many people emigrated. We had aging population, so many people retired also. And that a labor shortage was threatening the tourist season, as you probably have the sense of it, that Croatia, Malta, and Cyprus are the countries within the European Union that are almost like the Maldives, getting a significant share of their GDP from tourism. So we had a threatening tourism season. We had also threatening construction building, and all of a sudden, more than 60,000 work permits were issued. And now there are no more work permits with us because we are quite aware that So there is also an increasing number of Sri Lankan people coming. That number is still very small. But for instance, in Serbia, that number is much higher, especially when it comes to drivers and so-called platform workers. So who got both global together than very services. Why do we talk about immigrant entrepreneurship? Like all the studies around the world have shown so much and so many of the benefits for the local community. The immigrant entrepreneurs are shown to be more educated, more flexible, more goal-oriented than the local entrepreneurs. Some of them, of course, need to be because of the circumstances they're dealing with. Also, there was one big stigma that the immigrant entrepreneurs are actually job takers, that they are taking over the jobs from the local community. Very recent study based on the US data shows that there are more job makers than job takers. It's also when you think of the ethnic entrepreneurship. For instance, the Chinese community that is usually very also close in terms of, for instance, for me, they were the toughest to be interviewed because they didn't want to speak about even very some soft random issues. I wouldn't ask them about paying taxes, of course. I would just ask them about the career changes or how they business develop. So they're mostly family businesses. So in line with that business model and the way they function, they're shown to be much more propulsive than the local entrepreneurs. And in terms of the way they approach building their businesses and flexibility, they're less conservative than they need. Apart from that, and I'll show several examples, then shown to have many positive spillover effects in the local society. I mean, Germany is such a great example of the immigration. I know there are other issues as well. But when we discuss this topic and the closed mindedness of Croatian people towards immigration, because it's done studies done after we joined the EU, Croatian people were among the most closed-minded ones, saying that they don't actually see any opportunities or any positive sides from the immigration, especially those from the third country nationals. So it's sort of typical Dunning-Kruger phenomenon. When we ask them about how much do you know about immigration, how much do you know about the culture, religion, people from the third countries, they would say, I don't know, but still they would consider it a threat. So very, very typical cognitive bias. And then there was common the story about Croatian people traditionally moving to Germany and not actually having any important barriers in terms of adaptation, integration, and many other nations as well. Taking Germany, and we usually take it as well, not only because of you. Also in terms of the war, initially with Ukraine, there were also barriers, especially when it came to actually populist politicians of the right wing. I consider, like Viktor Orban, for instance, they don't need any immigration. We'll deal with that by our, yeah. Robots will serve our tourists, whatever. So it was kind of tough to listen to that. And I won't go into the many details, but just leaving the major studies showing the basic facts of immigrant entrepreneurship worldwide. But that very much higher entrepreneurial propensity is something that is characteristic for all the countries around the world investigated. And also the contribution that they make to the host economies is very relevant. So what we had in pre-COVID times, and then I'll switch to post-COVID times. In 2019, in November, the Economist had this special report on migration, and it said to make the world richer, let people move. So on the day when it was published, I put the information in Google, immigrant entrepreneur, foreign entrepreneur. So what I got was quite a lot of hate speech. I won't feel translated. And these are sort of mainstream media in Croatia. So one was a hate speech from the local citizen. Another was a testimony from the foreign entrepreneur in Croatia, the one below, who says that basically there is no meritocracy, it's quite corrupt, and there is quite a lot of nepotism. And that Croats don't like other people succeeding. So see the contrast. And despite all those facts presented that I kind of skimmed now, there is still this gap in the perception of immigrants, especially the one from the third countries, and it's not only specific for Croatia, and entrepreneurs, so potential entrepreneurs. So there is this idea of attacking our public safety. I mean, Croatia is now in the world rated among top 3 countries where you can walk alone in the streets. So things like that are something that we for decades took for granted. For instance, I mean, I traveled quite a lot, but when my cousins who moved to South Africa came to visit, and they live in Dubrovnik. I mean, their grandpa and grandma lived in Dubrovnik. Their major thing in Dubrovnik, and Dubrovnik, was to go alone to the supermarket. Because I remember, because we are similar age, come on, Dubrovnik, your main thing is going to the local shop alone. And then we're like, don't you know? Have you seen the pictures of our house? Don't you know that? I mean, their dad is a top doctor there, and so many things, but still, you know, they live with 3 dogs, with 2 security guys, and for them, it was such the freedom and the idea of safety was the main thing. And there were only like 15. So still Croatia is among those countries, according to the last survey published a few months ago. And then the idea of somebody for the average Croat whom they don't perceive to be similar is considered to be a threat, especially because they are not informed on immigration. Things are changing. What we have in the reality, I'll just tell you some of the stories because you way well known. We have Nick Hogan from UB40 bringing the biggest Croatian the biggest music festival to Croatian seaside, and also one of the first Croatian craft breweries. So if you come to Croatia, go to the garden breweries, you will know that it was founded by the UB40 producer. Then one of the major Japanese doctors treating our athletes went to the Olympics. Then nautical bracelets was Croatia famous for the seaside. The most famous nautical bracelets are produced by the Romanian couple who came to the Croatian seaside, fell in love with the nature. She used to be a BBC PR person in Romania, and she used to work in the real estate. And they said, well, we weren't actually wanted to live at the seaside. Why don't we move here? They moved. What then happened? They realized, well, Croatian bureaucracy is sort of an Armageddon. And while waiting for their permits, we're waiting to get them and to kind of have that investment done and those luxury villas by the seaside being built. They wanted to be patient and keep their nerves, and their hobby was anyways to build by hand those mountain bracelets. And then they started also grading the initials or signs or whatever. In 2 years, they had 5 shops all over the seaside and also 1 shop in Zagreb. And they started building the franchising model. In the meantime, after some years, they got the permits, and now they're also dealing with that tourism business. And still they are white, people white skinned, they still say that people usually tell, come on, you must have had some Croatian grandma. So nobody believes they did. I mean, now they do, but for years they had to explain there was no family relation. I'll talk about those people later. So, good news is that perception of the migrants and also on the entrepreneurs is changing. One of the key people for that was a British-Irish entrepreneur who, after visiting dozens of countries, I think 85, so quite a big number, stable place to live. So he built a sort of a main source of information in English for the foreigners in Croatia. And he started exploring to Croatia to every single village, not only the seaside, but from the Zagreb, now he went to Eastern Croatia, and decided that was the best place for him, because in terms of affordability, safety, quality of food, he wants to stay there for some time. And so the attitudes toward immigrants, this is in the EU, so we are now not anymore at the bottom. It may mean that some other EU member states have changed their attitude in a negative manner, but still, when we work, and I'll show you some of those quotes, we talk with immigrants and with immigrant entrepreneurs in particular, they mostly find Croatian people to be very welcoming. And what they also consider to be great advantage is the level of English spoken among ordinary people. But then, I won't go into every single piece of that. These are the key formal and informal barriers for immigrant entrepreneurs in Croatia. We group them according to the origin. So as you can see, down the road totally to down is the native entrepreneurs. They still face a number of barriers. Whichever international benchmarking result, being it a World Bank, Big Business, or now Business Strategies, the US version of it, or the World Economic Forum, or the International Institute for Management Development, on top of every issues we're doing business in Croatia, the local business community, we would say it's the bureaucracy and efficient bureaucracy, unpredictable tax regulations, the lack of workforce, and then other issues. But this will be always at the top. So this is something that the foreign entrepreneurs also recognize, of course, with much more burden. And then we added what are the issues that EU entrepreneurs face. And this would be, for instance, absence of any written instructions in English. This is now changing. But for a long time, we would try to Ministry of Interior and be a digital nomad or immigrant entrepreneur, and you would face front officer not speaking English. And then we interviewed the Minister of Interior, and they said, well, you know, these are still old people that are not retired. Out of 12 people who work as a front officer for immigrants, we have 9 of them who don't really speak English. So what should the immigrants do? And especially if you want to apply for some subsidies or some self-employment support, which are eligible for, if we get all the written instructions in Croatian and don't have anybody to translate it to for free, why would you move there, apart from their natural beauties? There is also that discrimination factor, according to the background or if you belong to some other group that is underrepresented. And then when it comes to the non-EU countries, but developed countries, then your list keeps enlarging. So you may be from the States or Australia, New Zealand, then you have more issues. But then if you're Sri Lanka, meaning non-EU, less developed countries, then your list of key formal barriers and key informal barriers is that one. And people are actually still coming. And then we kept asking ourselves, what can we learn? Carnival is the first ever Sri Lankan restaurant in Croatia. This year, the next year, it shall celebrate 10 years. It was founded it wasn't a necessity-based entrepreneurship. It was opportunity-based. It was an IT guy working in a multinational company who didn't want to deal with IT anymore. Came to Croatia, liked Croatia, showed his brother Croatia. The brother also came over. He came with his wife, divorced, but still stayed in Croatia. Carnival, I just checked it today, is 4.6 on Google, has more than 4,000 reviews, and it's always full. I mean, I passed there because it's so close to my office. It's also in the main street in the center of Zagreb, where the bars and the restaurants are. So and what I like with them is that they adjusted the level of spiciness. So they fully adjusted it to the localities, but they attract both local and international guests, of course. I also mentioned one of the things that is very so it's very nice during the pandemic. The way the Carnival celebrated is fifth birthday, because it happened during hard lockdown. They provided free meals to any medical staff who came to the restaurant. So they said, well, in these times, that's the only good way to celebrate our birthdays. So any medical staff who would come to their restaurant would get a free lunch. Although all the economists know there is no free lunch, that was a real free lunch or free dinner. So they found their niche and they're working perfect. So why do people come to countries like Croatia, or why do they return? It's usually similar to this lifestyle entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka. Sorry if I mentioned too much the similarities in terms of bureaucracy and public services. They usually come for the natural beauty and for some private reasons. You know, when I asked one of the biggest Montenegrin entrepreneurs, and he had an IT company, and he managed to import the engineers from the Silicon Valley and keep them. So he kept talking about the business model and so forth. So I was like, I can understand all of it, but those mobile, it's such a mobile workforce. If you think of like Michael Florida's examples of creative cities and how to attract the individuals that provide the whole society with high value added, they were on the top, and he said, you know what they did. I made sure they were well integrated into the local community, so they all found lives in Montenegro. It wasn't me. sorry?
Or husband.
Or husband, but mostly were men from the Silicon Valley. So everybody laughed at the conference, but he said, it's not that I did it on purpose, but it works. Miracle. So people usually stay in those countries. They love the climate, they love the nature, and they recognize the advantages and also the opportunity that the local entrepreneurs could lose. So overall flavor of immigrant entrepreneurship in not only in Croatia and Eastern Europe, it's like perfect for living, difficult for doing business. And then when I talked to a Nigerian woman who just wanted to be a single mother and wanted to move from Nigeria and opened a restaurant. It's just every time I go to hear them saying one more paper, please. And that's about the bureaucracy. It's always one more paper, please, and bring it in the hard copy. And then I had interviewed digital nomads, and being flexible as they are, they would come from the Caribbean or Canary Islands, and then the digital nomad was going to Singapore. So he said, I felt it wasn't enough for me. So, I was reading about Croatia. I thought, well, it's on the way from Canary Islands to Singapore. So I'll go to Croatia. And then he applied for the digital nomad visa. He was only the first applicant. They sent him an email saying, well, we need this paper, but in your hard copy from your local court. And I was like, you know what? I was in the Canary Islands. I could today fly to Singapore. And then luckily, there was lockdown, and all of a sudden everything could be done digitally. And then we had one of the major Australian investors who was in Croatia, represented by my former students. I worked at law school. So I also consulted them. He said, what? He's at that point was the third largest investor in Australia, wanted to invest in Croatia. So what I got from one of our public authorities was like, that's okay. Everything is fine, but he needs to come here to sign this personally. Otherwise, won't approve that investment. He said, I just couldn't tell it to him. So we found the ways to deal with it, but still, it's tough. So what many British people say, having in mind the Brexit and its implications, they said we never thought we would like the idea of having a Croatian permit to stay, residence permit or Croatian citizenship after some time, and because after UK left EU, it really does complicate stuff for them in the European Union. Anyway, these are some of the lessons that are highly emphasized by the immigrant entrepreneurs in Croatia. And these are also some of the good practices. So when we talk about immigrant entrepreneurs, we actually widened the topic both to the ethnic and social and refugee entrepreneurship. And our message is for the wider audience, it's actually a business, it's not a charity. We have a very good example of the Ukrainian refugees who got the housing in the previously war-affected area of Croatia. So it's sort of the place that is abandoned. People emigrated because there were no work opportunities. Only very, very old people left there, and that was it. So they were provided the housing. These were mostly young women with kids, and they organized themselves, opened their businesses, network, and now their NGO, Svoja, got this grant from the UK Embassy, from the EBRD. They keep building up their network and building up their businesses, and some of them moving in other parts of Croatia, other ones working on sort of revitalizing that part that was almost with zero inhabitants. So the way they organized it for me was miraculous, because for us, it's some parts of Croatia that were previously the most affected by the war. I had at some point that sense when I visited some parts of the East Coast. You could feel still the major difference, and the people living in major cities cannot really grasp what is there that should be improved bottom up and top down. And these people managed to revive it because they brought some new energy. Also, a very, very important thing are these informal expat networks. So when I checked the potential or the existing entrepreneurs in Sri Lanka, I both check the media, so like Facebook groups and similar, but also try to meet them live and to hear their stories. Again, another lesson from the immigrant entrepreneurs, they see the things that the locals take for granted. And when they come up here, they're like, oh my God, I don't know where to live. I shortlisted several destinations within Sri Lanka. So we decided we moved 3 months from one to the other. I just got to the Dutch couple a couple of days ago. And there it was hospitality business. So we lived here. We need to organize all the visa requirements, but they laugh about their trouble because they know they don't know what is their favorite place in Sri Lanka because they'll anyway work remotely, they'll anyway be online. So now they need to choose their physical place. Also, what these informal networks do is not only provide information for the professional life, but also for the private life. So do you recommend me a dentist that speaks fluent English or fluent Dutch? Do you recommend me a cinema for the kids because they want to watch Frozen, but they don't know how to read. So I need Frozen in English or in German or some other language. So these groups work extremely fast and efficient, and also provide a sense of belonging to the local community. We checked it, and I won't go into those scientific details. We checked it according to its resilience and flexibility according to some usual frameworks done by provided for the local entrepreneurs. And again, in any of those cases, the immigrant entrepreneurs should be faster in their reaction, more flexible, and more resilient. So we had, for instance, retired American former army person. He came to Split, so city at the seaside, opened the hotel. 3 days later, there was hard lockdown. And since it takes such a while for the creation bureaucracy to provide you the permits, he was like, well, we almost went bankrupt. And according to Croatian law for foreigners, if you're a third country national, you need to provide an average salary to your workers. So his receptionist, even though it was a budget hotel, had the same salary as a receptionist in the 5-star hotel, because still some small hotels are giving some money in the envelopes and not paying it to the account. What he organized was a fundraising campaign. He said, I want my people to stay employed. I'm not eligible for the government subsidies because I only now opened my business. So he organized a fundraising campaign, kept his people employed, and survived till the end of the lockdown. This is yet another example of the Chinese entrepreneur, Shanghai businessman who came to Croatia for the business visit and said, well, Shanghai is way too big. I want to move there. I'll open my tea house. And then again, lockdown and everything else happened. But as you can see, I follow him also on social media. And then he's a huge football fan. And whenever Croatia plays, he puts like, I love you, Croatia. And this is, for instance, Eurozone contact. Again, very, very active fans in those expert groups. So their sense of belonging to the country is immense. This is another brewery that opened just before the lockdown. What they didn't know how long will it last. So they said, well, we'll brew some beer and we'll see what happens. And informally, they said, well, we can drink it all because if we stay here without any tourists, it's in the tracks in northern part of the coast, at least it will be fun to drink all of the beer. So let's brew something, and if this year will be busy, it's okay. If not, we'll drink it. So they said it was a tsunami because Croatia is a part of the nation. So we were lucky in those circumstances because the moment the borders opened, all the car tourists could easily come in. There is no real destination management, but there is still the factor of being lucky, I would say. Then Israelis, we can come back to these. And then again, some good examples. So lacking formal support, still lacking, and this new law for foreigners is really tough. But then the foreign business owners, not only that they organize their online networks, they also organize the in-person meetups. Every time they different topics, not only hobby topics like hiking or road trip, but they have the business-related topics, and they organize their own association. So they meet on a regular basis, exchange information. Another great example is digital nomad association. Not only, and you know where did the idea come from? Why was Croatia that fast with the digital nomad visa? Who proposed it to the prime minister? A Dutch entrepreneur in Croatia. He started pushing, although he didn't need it himself. He thought it was a great idea. He saw it as a propulsive way of attracting foreign citizens. He is Dutch with Croatian wife, so no need for any formal requirements to reside in Croatia. And then the government was quite quick with digital nomad visa. So Croatia is the one with 12-month digital nomad visa. Germany has the longest period for the digital nomads. It can go all the way up to 3 years. And they are active both at the national level, but also at the local level. So in their meetups, they always choose the monthly ambassador, who is the one in charge of socializing, accepting, inviting new members of this local community, providing all the necessary support, and of course, help them to further grow their businesses. And also connect them with the local co-living, co-working spaces, local recommendations, or dentists, whatever they need. So they're extremely active, and what they do is sort of train the trainers. So those monthly ambassadors train the next monthly ambassador. So that network grows. And then when you talk about diaspora engagement, and that was one of the topics we mentioned, this is what the countries worldwide are doing. So we were talking about it. So they provide external voting rights. They provide the opportunity of having dual citizenship, and also they set up diaspora agencies. But usually, when you ask, I'm not now saying about any specific country. Usually, when you ask diaspora representatives, most of them didn't have any experience, or if they contacted those diaspora agencies, there were so one-off events, or mostly like the cocktail events, where not much follow-up has been done. Among the good examples in Eastern Europe is, for instance, Slovenia, an example. They focus on highly educated diaspora representatives, so Slovenes living and working abroad. And they have it as an informal group that serves sort of a think tank. So depending on the government, they consulted for various issues, being in investment opportunities or some public policies or some connections. Croatia, with its agency employing more than 50 people for the diaspora, is definitely not a good example in terms of productivity. Many other Eastern European countries like Bulgaria, Macedonia, they also build their ministries of diaspora, but it is mostly online driven. It is sort of a pre-election plan, so you want to attract more people back. Now they'll see things have improved. And when I, for instance, talked about people from Estonia, they would say, pointless. Why would you need an agency? You are Estonians living abroad, or Estonians who moved to Finland. They well know from their friends and family that it got better in Estonia. And if they see their opportunity being in the private and professional ones, they'll move back. If they work remotely, again, mentioning the lockdown period, if they want to come back to work with their family and their home, they'll come back. They'll see the difference, of course, in both the costs, and then move back. So why would you need that sort of an agency if it doesn't provide a real long-term support? Another important, I guess, a good milestone that done so far is, for instance, for Serbia, we had immense brain drain, but never got a real overview of the number of people who emigrated. So they the dictatorship, they had so many political and economic issues in the country. Now, with the help of UNDP, they organized the brain drain map, and they want to first see who went abroad, who stayed abroad, and how do we use that potential. Then further, there is Colombia, who engaged the Harvard Development Lab to help them build that whole database and the ways to engage the diaspora. Otherwise, to have something to start with. In Bosnia, the researchers, because they have this discontinuity because of the war, they clearly recognize many transnational entrepreneurs who work both in the country, their destination country, but also in their home country, and who use the opportunity in those networks they built all around. I mentioned to Mona that I think the best example is a Swedish taxi company, where the call center is not in India or China, it's in Bosnia. And they provide a call center there. Most of the employees are people who spent some time in Sweden while they were refugees, so they speak basic Swedish. And the center of the taxi company and the cars and everything is in Malta. So they kind of use those networks both in their home and in their destination countries. So this is another, again, a huge topic to deal with. So let me conclude with those remarks and open it to the discussion, and I can also then go to backup slides and other topics. So actually the immigrant entrepreneurs usually also make sort of a litmus paper for the incumbents. They clearly show where the red tape is, because for them it's even bigger. But they also show where the unused opportunities, where the niches in the local societies are. In addition to that, they show how to deal with a series of external shocks. I'm well aware that Sri Lanka is a rather resilient society, bearing in mind that I was the 20th anniversary, but it's 20 years since the tsunami this year, and so many other things going on that really show to, apart from the recent economic crisis, shown to be a resilient society. So that kind of exogenous shocks and multiple exogenous shocks, in the year of 2020, I need to say that so. Croatia was the first time presiding to the European Union. So year 2020. So we had to see what happened in the world in the year 2020. Croatia took over the presidency. We had a lockdown. We had, after 140 years, series of major earthquakes in Croatia after 140 years. We had floods that killed some people, for the first time ever, floods that killed some people. So we said, see what happens when Croatia enters such a safe space. And digital nomads, they faced all those barriers when they were hired. Some of them were like, I wanted to go to Thailand. I wanted to go to Bali because these are still their top destinations. But then they were not open. So I said, I don't want to be stuck in my home. Well, Croatia opened its both borders. Let's try Croatia. Let's be flexible. Let's not wait for other policymakers to change things. We'll adapt. In terms of lifestyle entrepreneurship, and that is very fun when talking to the experts here, so many similarities. Croatia, despite all its obstacles, showed to be very attractive. And informal private networks also as a way to compensate for like informal networks. So again, just to underline all those global equivalent advantages of immigrant entrepreneurship, but also return entrepreneurship. There's like a big study showing, for instance, the case of Albanian people that during the time of the last economic crisis went to Greece. They worked there, they came back, and what they expected in the large way, what they expected to happen was that because they were either in agriculture or in the hospitality industry, that there would be issues with their employment. But it didn't happen. After several years when they leave, they improved their skills and they actually contributed to the employment by almost 5%, but also to the level of the value they brought back to their own society. I'm trying to be in a nutshell. So this is the SVOIA, the Ukrainian refugee entrepreneurs, that use that made sure they use all of those lessons and to apply them. I just recently talked to them in an academy for women entrepreneurs that was organized by the US Embassy in Croatia. And what I really found was their level of being proactive. So one of the ladies who just founded her own small coffee shop in that Korenica that is, as I said, more affected area. You can feel it after more than 30 years. She said, now it's time to move to Zagreb. So please help. Can you advise? What should I do? I would like to apply that to business model. I have those competencies. And I think my son needs me in Zagreb because he wants to start his studies in Zagreb. My husband is still in Ukraine. We don't know when he's coming to see us. So I need to move despite, tell me please. And I said, yeah, just send me email with all the information you need. So her email was like a draft business plan. She was so proactive and she managed to kind of think of all the skills she can transfer to a coffee shop that's considered not to be a sort of a business model that provides any breakthrough, but the way she thought of it, the way she asked questions about competitors, about the scene, about what the locals go to tourists in Zagreb appreciate, showed me that she'll do it. She'll do it and she'll do it by October when her son is about to join the university. And they also do what they always told us, they need to have it in person. They want to have the trainings and the meetups in person. Online, it's very convenient. It's here, it's logistically attractive, but then if it's in person, that's much better, much more effective way. So what I mostly found the major similarities is that lifestyle entrepreneurship, the possibilities of transnational and return entrepreneurship, digital nomads that are, I think, as I read, there's still a visa is on the way, should attract more people. All the historic links, especially with the UK, that you have in terms of funding and technical assistance, and that retirement, there was a retirement visa, but it's now not available anymore. I was also checking it, and various opportunities for diaspora engagement. I think that unpredictability with the visa system, I'm not basing it only on my own example that was supposed to be very straightforward. I don't know when I was coming here. It's one of the huge issues that is being presented in the literature. So if you ask the average business investor, would you like the 5 unpredictable taxes or lower but unpredictable taxes? They would choose predictability. So you want to have predictability. You want to have people not without arbitrary interpretation. When I was now exiting Sri Lanka to enter back, because that's the requirement of the visa, even the officer said, "Oh, I'm so sorry for you. See, we have a crazy government." I was so not he's an official person. And I told him, no, it's fine. I brought you all the documents just to make sure if you don't find me in the city. He said, no, I'm so happy that I found you. But and then he repeated it. And I was like, but we are kind of used to it, you know? Sorry for you foreigners. So there is always this welcoming touch among Sri Lankans, but it cannot compensate for everything that is lacking formally. And I'm not now trying to talk about from this Western bubble, and because as you saw, I'm not an average Western society. I'm just pure formally EU members. Thank you for your attention. Let's look at the pictures. Do not remind yourself of that lengthy list of things.